dinosaurs.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
Today, I'm going to be taking out the Marvel Legends Series 2 action figures released by Toy Biz in 2002. The Marvel Legends line is probably one of the most iconic and popular action figure lines ever released. In the previous video, we looked at the first wave of figures in this line released by Toy Biz in 2002. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the second series. The Marvel's Legend line was actually intended to be a spin-off line from the Spider-Man Classics line, but it proved to be so popular that it is still running to this day. With Toy Biz, the line went on to have 16 series, but in 2007, Hasbro got the Marvel license, but continued to produce the line for a few more years before it was unfortunately cancelled. With the event of the MCU and its huge popularity and the growing fan pressure, the Marvel Legends line was eagerly reintroduced and is still going to this day. Toy Biz originally packaged each of the figures in the initial wave with a comic book about the character. Different variations of the comic book were also produced in gold. Some of the figures also came with a mini gold poster, and they came with a unique display stand. The Series 2 figures were released in 2003, and as with the first series, there were several variations of each of the characters released. These variations were often more to do with the accessories and the comic book or the poster that came with the figures rather than the figure themselves. However, in some instances, there were also different variations of the figure released. The Series 2 line officially only had 4 characters in the lineup. However, there were 2 additional figures that weren't featured on the back of the backing card, and this was the Hulk variation figure and the Doombot figure. Also, on top of this, because of the different variations of accessories that were available in this line, there were actually up to 16 different available. For the full listing of the figures and variations that came in this set, see the description box below. The packaging for these figures was very generic to save costs. Toy Biz used a clamshell design which remained the same for all the figures. The clamshell had a space at the front for a card to be inserted with the Marvel logo and the character's name. There was also a generic backing card produced that had the Marvel logo and Series 2 printed at the top. This meant that the same backing card could be used for all the figures. The comic book, which was character specific, could then be placed on top of the backing card, and the action figure itself would be placed on top of the comic and the accessories to the left of the figure, before being sealed inside the clamshell. This meant that it was easy to replace the backing cards and characters. The reverse of the backing card had the character's profile and images of each of the 4 characters that were available in this line. As already mentioned, the backing card did not include any images of the Hulk variant figure or the Doombot figure. The figures stood at about 7 inches in height and featured as much as 30 points of articulation, making these some of the most poseable action figures available at that time. The 16 figures and variants that were available in this line were the Hulk, which was a variation of the Series 1 figure with a torn lab coat, a US version Doctor Doom, a UK version Doctor Doom with gold poster, a Canadian version Doctor Doom, also with a gold poster, the Doombot, a UK version Doombot with gold poster, a Canadian Doombot with gold poster, a US version of the Human Torch with the number 4, a US version of the Human Torch without the number 4, a Canadian version of the Human Torch with a comic but without the number 4, and a Canadian Human Torch with a gold poster without the number 4, and a US Human Torch with gold poster and without the number 4, a UK Human Torch with gold poster and with the number 4. The Nemour figure, a US Nemour figure, a Canadian Nemour with gold poster, a UK Nemour with gold poster, a US version of the Thing, a Canadian version of the Thing with comic, a Canadian version of the Thing with a gold poster, a UK version of the Thing with a gold poster, and a Trenchcoat variation Thing released in the US. Let's take a look at these amazing figures in more detail. So the first figure we're going to take a look at today is the Incredible Hulk. As already mentioned, the Hulk made his first appearance in Series 1, and this figure in Series 2 was a variant of this figure. This new Hulk was exactly the same as its predecessor, using the same sculpting and design. The sculpt on this figure was excellent and very detailed, but this variant was sculpted with a torn white lab coat. He was fully articulated and stood at about 7 inches in height. In the packaging, the figure also came with an Incredible Hulk comic book, alongside a mounting platform. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $30 and $44, and loose for between $26 and $37. The next figure we're looking at in this series is the Doctor Doom figure. Dr. Victor Von Doom is one of Marvel's oldest villains. Over the years, he has been a formidable villain and surprisingly even a hero at times. Over the years, he has been a formidable villain and surprisingly, he has even been a hero at times. Dr. Doom is best known in the Marvel Universe for his hatred of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. Many fans will agree that this figure was one of the best in Toy Biz's Marvel Legends line. It was a near perfect representation of Dr. Doom. The detailing on his clothes, the belt, armour and face sculpt were awesome. The Marvel Legends figures had some of the best articulation on the market at the time, and this figure was no exception, with movement in almost every joint. The only problem with this figure was that the skirt hindered his hip movement. For accessories, the figure came with a castle base with the Von Doom emblem on it, a gun, a mask and his cape. The gun fitted perfectly into the gun holster on his hip, and the cape, which was made of soft fabric, gave him a very classic look. My favourite thing about this figure was his removable mask, which you could take off and put back on to reveal his face underneath. Generally, this was a really great figure to have in your collection. At the time of its release, there were different variants of this figure, with gold-framed posters of Dr. Doom and different issues of the Fantastic Four comic book. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $25 and $63, loose for between $12 and $30. The next figure we're looking at is the Doombot. The Doombot was Doctor Doom's mechanical clone and was capable of taking the place of the villain whenever necessary. As a result, this figure is an almost exact replica of the Doctor Doom figure. The only major difference was when his helmet was taken off, and instead of a human face, there was a mechanical, robot-looking face. The detailing on the head sculpt for this was perfect and gave him a very robotic, mechanical look and feel. Other than the face, everything else was the same as the regular Doctor Doom figure. This figure is hard to find, and like the Hulk figure, wasn't featured on the backing card, so it is usually more sought after by fans and collectors. Variants of the figure also featured gold-framed posters of Doctor Doom or an issue of the Fantastic Four comic. Minting a card, this figure sells between $30 and $75 and loose for between $15 and $43. Next is the Human Torch. The Human Torch was another great classic Marvel Universe character and part of the Fantastic Four. This Human Torch figure was based on the old Spider-Man classic figure. The Human Torch wasn't known to be a buff character, and this figure stayed true to his look, with just a bit of highlighted muscles. The figure's arms, legs and head had flames sculpted into the figure, which added some flair and authenticity to him. The paint job was also near perfectly done. This figure, as with most of the Toy Biz Marvel Legend figures, had really great articulation, with articulation on virtually all of his joints. The torch came with a really cool flame base, and there was also a spurt of flame that could be attached to his hand. This figure was a great representation of the torch and one of the better figures from the Toy Biz Marvel Legends line, and one that you shouldn't miss out on if you get the opportunity to buy him. Variants of this figure could be identified by the lack of the number 4 written on the figure's chest. Also, depending on the variant you got, you may have had a Fantastic Four comic book or a gold frame poster of the superhero. So the variants of this figure available were with or without the number 4 in the US, without the number 4 but with a comic in Canada, without the number 4 and with a gold poster in Canada, with the gold poster and without the number 4 in the US, and with a gold poster and with the number 4 in the UK. The basic figure sells for between $27 and $46 minting the card, and loose for between $15 and $30. The next figure is the Nemour figure. Nemour is not as popular as many of the other characters featured in the MCU, but he is still a popular and very active character in the comic books, and he is still a hotly contested figure. For this figure, Nemour was sculpted with a retro-looking costume that was popular with the figure's first appearance. He had an open, sleeveless jacket on, flaunting his muscles. There was a bronze belt around his waist with a trident etched onto the belt buckle. The figure also had black pants and boots, and around his ankles were movable wings that looked like something inspired by a Greek god. The sculpting on this figure was amazing all round, from the detailing on his face down to his feet, and the paint job complemented the great sculpting perfectly. The figure had almost complete articulation, except there was no ab crunch. Also, the figure came with a water-based stand and a trident for accessories. These cool accessories gave him the persona and presence of a real ruler of the waters. The toy was typically packed with a copy of the Nemour the Savage Submariner comic, but the UK and Canadian variant came with a gold poster of Nemour. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $22 and $45 and loose for between $14 to $37. The last figure we're looking at today is The Thing. The Thing was one of the best sculpted figures in this series due to the complexity of his body sculpt. Toy Biz did a great job of replicating his look, and he looked like he was actually made from rocks. This was one big, mean-looking figure that represented the Ben Grimm character almost perfectly. The little blue shorts he had on and the rest of the figure displayed an awesome amount of detailing that was put into the character, down to the cracks between the rocks. Both the sculpt and the paint jobs were incredible. The Thing had up to 30 points of articulation, including bendy figures. One drawback with this figure was that there was no special action feature, but he came with a graffiti painted wall as an accessory. Variations of this figure were available with an issue of the Fantastic Four comic book or a gold framed poster of the Thing. There was also a trench coat version of the Thing that was released in the US. This variation features the Thing wearing a trench coat, sunglasses and a hat, as if he's going out for a casual stroll in the city. Mint on a card, this figure sells for between $28 to $50 and loose for between $18 to $30. The US trenchcoat version goes for between $50 to $100 mint on the card and for between $20 to $35 loose. Please note that all the prices quoted in this video are generally for the basic figures and not for the variants, and are taken as an average. If you're looking for any of these, check out the new AFR Vintage Action Figure store for some great prices. Worldwide delivery is available and I accept multiple currencies.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.